Hi there. In this video I'm going to be giving my long-term review of my M1 MacBook Air. Now I purchased this I've had it about 9 months now, so I've had a good chance to put it through its paces and test out its features. The one I have is simply the base model. Well, not quite the base model. It's the base model in that it has the M1 chip with only the 7 GPU cores rather than 8. And it has 256 gigabyte of storage. I did, however, plump for the 16 gigabyte model rather than the 8 gigabyte. Since you can't upgrade the RAM yourself, I thought it possibly wise, given I use it for editing these videos, for example, to go for the 16 gigabyte. However, I've seen a number of reviews that have said that 8 gigabytes perfectly adequate anyway. But anyway, I thought I'd future-proof it a little bit by going for the 16 gigabyte one. Now, I have to say straight up that I'm hugely impressed. I think it's absolutely superb, this device. It lives up basically to all the hype about the M1 chip. Of course, it's as you will know if you own a MacBook Air or a MacBook, the build quality is superb. It's Apple, probably second to none in terms of Apple's build quality. It looks great. It's sleek. It's relatively light. It has the beautiful Retina display now, the MacBook Air, which is beautiful. The color accuracy is very good. It's great to work with, great on the eyes. The keyboard is excellent now that Apple, of course, went back to the original scissor mechanism, I think it's called, not the awful butterfly keys. They got rid of those, thankfully. So the keyboard is excellent to type on. The trackpad, of course, Apple is renowned for having the best trackpads in the business, and this one is no exception. The trackpad is superb. The gestures that you can do with it work great. It's beautifully fast and responsive, as you'd expect, given the M1 chip. And of course, Mac OS now. This comes with. Well, I think this came with whatever the one before Big Sur was. I think I installed Big Sur myself on this. But of course, it's a mature operating system now. Really very little wrong with it. And of course, being a desktop machine, it has a full range of desktop apps available. Anything you want, really. Of course, all the Adobe Creative Cloud apps are excellent on Mac, particularly now that most of them, or the key ones, have been optimized for the M1 chip. You've got Microsoft Office, of course, if you want that. I do actually prefer using Office on my Surface laptop with Windows, but Office still works great. Now, where do I think this MacBook Air particularly excels? I said overall it's a fabulous laptop, easily the best one I've owned, and certainly from what I've seen of many other reviewers agree that it's possibly the best laptop available at the moment. Where does it particularly excel? Well, obviously, in terms of processor speed, the M1 chip lives up to the hype. It's amazing to think this is really just the first generation, so it's only going to get better and faster, but it's wonderfully fast. It breezes through anything that you throw at it. 4K video editing large raw photo files, no problem whatsoever. And also, which is of course particularly amazing in ways, it is the thermal efficiency. It has the best power to energy. I think that's the correct ratio around. I think what it means basically, it just doesn't get hot. I mean, it might get warm when you're doing some intensive CPU or GPU stuff with video, for example, but basically it really barely gets warm. Certainly for ordinary sort of web browsing and mail and so on, it just remains perfectly cool. I mean, this is evidenced, of course, by the fact that Apple didn't need to put a fan in here, and that you might think, does that cause it to overheat? Well, no, I've had no issues whatsoever with that. And of course, battery life is sensational on this. I mean, it basically lasts all day, no problem at all. I think if you were doing a lot of continuous heavy lifting, editing videos, photos and so on, then I think the battery will go down much more quickly, and you may need to recharge it or to plug it in. But to be honest, I haven't had that issue. And certainly, as I say, if you're just using it for normal web browsing, mail, some mild photo editing, office type work, the battery will last all day. Now, of course, it also comes with a couple of Thunderbolt 3 USB-C 4 ports, the latest standard, which means that you can attach very fast external SSD drives, like the SanDisk Extreme Pro one, which I reviewed, and that's a real bonus because you can have your video files, for example, on the external SSD, and it'll still work perfectly. There's no lag. In fact, the other area where I think this machine and Macs in general excel is what I would call digital media content creation, video editing, photo editing, music creation. Of course, the Mac comes with some excellent free software, GarageBand, iMovie, the Photos app, which are extremely good and functional apps in themselves. Of course, if you want to go further, there are the professional apps, Final Cut Pro, which I use to edit these videos, Logic Pro, which now, of course, they've all been optimized for the M1 chip, as indeed have most of the Adobe Creative Cloud apps. Are there any downsides then? Well, you might think what I've been saying, that there aren't any. Well, in fact, there really are very, very few. I mean, it really is a fabulous device. I think that one of the main criticisms has been the lack of connectivity. It does only have these two USB-C, USB-4, C4 and Thunderbolt 3 ports. And of course, one of them, and this is of course where you use one of these to charge the device. There's no separate charging port, which doesn't mean, of course, if you do have it plugged in, if you're using it plugged in, you're only left with the one port, which could be very limiting. Now, you can, of course, buy a hub, a Thunderbolt hub, and there are a couple of new ones, one by CalDigit, one by OWC, which have been very well reviewed, which can extend the number of ports. But again, that's of course extra expense. I mean, they cost between £150 and £200 here in the UK, so that's quite a lot extra. What I tend to do, in fact, is, as I've said in a previous video, I often use this with an external monitor, so often in clamshell mode. So in that case, the monitor supplies the power, and the monitor that I use, an HP monitor, does have some ports on it, so it acts in a sense like a hub as well, which gets around part of the issue. But I do think it would have been nice if they had more than two ports on. Some people would have liked an HDMI port, as you get on the new Mac Mini, which means you could have two external monitors. I think as it stands, this MacBook Air will only run one external 4K monitor, so an HDMI port would have been useful. An SD card slot, again, that's disappeared for a while, I think, on MacBooks, would again be very useful, particularly if you are wanting to edit photos and video and you have them recorded on an external SSD, then it would be nice just to slot that in rather than having to buy a separate card reader. And again, and the other thing which many people miss now, and there's rumour that this may be brought back with the new 14-inch, is it, or 16-inch MacBook Pros, which are rumoured to be coming out in a couple of months. They're rumoured to have a MagSafe port on them again, a MagSafe charging port, which again is something which, particularly since Apple has resurrected the MagSafe feature with its iPhone, with MagSafe with the iPhone, that would have been nice to have on this, and I suspect it, in the next version of the MacBook Air that would be there, particularly if they do bring it back on the new MacBook Pros rather. So those are really only the areas where I've felt that the machine was lacking. Otherwise, as I say, it's absolutely great. It does everything I want, super fast, super efficiently, and in a very cool, literally very cool manner.